The rain hammered against the windows of General Hospital like bullets on a war-zone bunker. Inside Sonny Corinthos' penthouse, the silence was heavier than thunder. Sonny Corinthos stood near the fireplace, glass of bourbon untouched in his hand. His eyes were dark, tired, dangerous. For weeks, everything around him had been collapsing. The warehouse explosion, the betrayal inside the organization, the mysterious shipments disappearing before they reached the docks. And worst of all, someone was hunting the Corinthos empire from inside. "Brick still hasn't found the leak?" Sonny asked quietly. Across the room, Jason Morgan leaned against the desk, arms folded. "No," Jason admitted. "Whoever it is, they know how you operate." Sonny's jaw tightened. That was the problem. Only family knew his operation that well. Only blood. Before Sonny could answer, the elevator doors slid open. A man walked in wearing a dark leather jacket soaked from the rain, tall, broad shoulders, calm eyes that scanned the room like a trained soldier. Jason instantly reached for his gun. "Stop," the stranger said evenly. "If I wanted Sonny dead, he already would be." Sonny narrowed his eyes. "You got a name?" The man stepped forward slowly. "Joe. Just Joe." But the second Sonny looked into the man's face, something twisted in his chest. The eyes. Those eyes were familiar. Too familiar. Jason noticed it too. The stranger reached into his pocket, pulled out an old silver medallion, and tossed it onto the table. Sonny froze. His breathing stopped, because that medallion belonged to a woman he hadn't seen in over 30 years. Maria Flores. The woman Sonny once loved before he became the kingpin of Port Charles. The woman who vanished overnight. The woman who had been pregnant. Sonny stared at Joe in disbelief. "No." Joe's voice remained steady. "My mother died 3 months ago." The room went silent. "She told me who my father was before she died." Sonny slowly looked up, and for the first time in years, fear crossed his face. "You're lying." Joe shook his head. "She said your real name before Mike Corbin changed everything. She knew about Bensonhurst, about Lily, about the panic attacks, about your first gun." Jason's expression hardened. Only someone incredibly close to Sonny would know those things. Joe took one more step forward. "I'm your son." The words hit like an explosion. Sonny staggered backward slightly. Jason watched carefully, ready for violence. But none came. Instead, Sonny looked broken. "You should have stayed away," Sonny whispered. Joe's eyes darkened. "My mother tried." Flashback, Ecuador, years ago. Maria sat in a tiny apartment holding a baby boy while reading newspaper headlines about Sonny Corinthos' rise in organized crime. Every headline terrified her. She knew if Sonny discovered the truth, their son would be dragged into darkness forever. So she disappeared, changed names, moved constantly, protected Joe from the Corinthos legacy. But secrets never stay buried forever. Back to present. Joe looked around the penthouse with disgust. "So this is it? The empire?" Sonny glared at him. "You don't know anything about my life. I know innocent people die around you." Jason stepped forward instantly. "Watch your mouth." Joe didn't even flinch. "I'm not afraid of you." That answer surprised Jason. Most people feared him instantly. Joe didn't. Interesting. Sonny studied the young man carefully. Late 20s, disciplined posture, military scars on his knuckles, sharp instincts. Joe noticed Sonny analyzing him. "I served overseas," Joe explained. "Private security after that." "So you're a soldier," Jason muttered. Joe nodded once. "And now?" Joe looked directly at Sonny. "Now I'm here because someone's trying to destroy your organization." Sonny laughed bitterly. "So what? You came to save me?" "No," Joe answered coldly. "I came because if your enemies win, they'll come after me next." Jason exchanged a glance with Sonny. The kid was smart, very smart. Joe pulled a flash drive from his jacket. "You've got a mole in your waterfront operation. Shipment records were altered. Offshore accounts drained slowly over months. Your enemy isn't attacking with guns. He looked Sonny directly in the eyes. They're bleeding you slowly. Jason grabbed the flash drive and plugged it into the laptop. Within seconds, his expression changed. This is real. Sonny stared at Joe. How'd you get this? Joe's voice turned icy. I intercepted one of the buyers in Caracas. You killed him? Joe paused. Then, he won't bother you again. Sonny saw it immediately. The darkness. The same darkness Sonny carried himself. And suddenly Sonny realized the horrifying truth. This man truly was his son. Over the next few days, Joe became a ghost inside Corinthos Coffee. Employees barely noticed him, but he noticed everything. Every nervous glance, every whispered conversation, every missing ledger. Joe moved like Jason but thought 3 steps ahead like Sonny. And that terrified everyone, especially Carly Spencer. You brought a stranger into this family? Carly snapped at Sonny inside the Metro Court. He's not a stranger. We don't know that. Sonny lowered his voice. I know. Carly crossed her arms. He could be manipulating you. But deep down, even Carly saw it. Joe had Sonny's eyes, his temper, his instincts, and worst of all, his ruthlessness. Meanwhile, Joe sat alone at the docks reviewing shipping manifests when Jason approached. You don't trust anybody, Jason observed. Joe didn't look up. Should I? Jason smirked slightly. Probably not. For the first time, Joe almost smiled. Jason studied him carefully. You hate Sonny? Joe finally looked at him. I hate what he became. But you're still here. Joe's voice dropped. My mother spent her entire life running from this world. Then she died broken, terrified, while Sonny lived like a king. The anger in his eyes burned. I needed to see if he deserved the sacrifice. Jason nodded slowly. And? Joe looked toward the dark harbor. I still haven't decided. Days later, chaos erupted. A Corinthos truck exploded near Pier 55. 3 men dead, 1 survivor barely alive. At General Hospital, doctors rushed through the ER while Sonny stormed inside like a hurricane. Who did this? Sonny demanded. No answers came, but Joe stood silently near the hallway watching everyone. Then suddenly, he grabbed a nurse and pulled her aside. Jason instantly noticed. What is it? Joe's eyes narrowed. That nurse is military. Jason blinked. What? She walks like combat-trained personnel. Jason looked again. Joe was right. The woman moved with tactical awareness. Joe quietly followed her down the corridor. The second she entered a storage room, Joe slammed the door shut behind them. The nurse spun instantly, knife appearing from nowhere. But Joe was faster. He disarmed her in seconds and pinned her against the wall. Who sent you? She smirked. You're Sonny's son. Joe froze. Then, boom! The storage room exploded. Jason dove as flames erupted through the hallway. Patients screamed, doctors ran. Sonny shouted Joe's name. But when the smoke cleared, Joe walked out carrying the unconscious assassin over his shoulder. Not a scratch on him. Everyone stared. Even Sonny, because Joe looked terrifyingly calm. Later that night, Brick uncovered the truth. The attacks were connected to a rival syndicate moving into Port Charles, led by a mysterious figure known only as the Shepherd. But the bigger shock came moments later. Brick looked pale. There's more. Sonny frowned. What? Brick swallowed hard. The Shepherd has been getting inside information from someone in your inner circle. Jason's eyes darkened. Who? Brick hesitated. Then, Michael. Silence exploded across the room. Michael Corinthos had betrayed Sonny. Again. Sonny looked devastated. Jason cursed under his breath. But Joe showed no emotion. That's why your organization is weak, Joe said coldly. You let emotions cloud judgment. Sonny snapped. That's my son. Joe stepped closer. And I'm your son too. The tension became unbearable. You think blood excuses betrayal? Joe continued. That's why your enemies keep winning. Sonny glared at him furiously. You don't understand this family. Joe's expression turned to stone. No, I understand it perfectly. Then he walked out. Later, Carly found Joe alone at the pier. You really think you're better than Sonny? Joe stared at the water. No. Then why attack him? Joe looked at her quietly. Because everyone around him is afraid to tell him the truth. Carly folded her arms. And what truth is that? Joe finally turned toward her. The Corinthos Empire is dying. Carly's face hardened. You don't know anything. I know fear, Joe replied softly. I know organizations that collapse from the inside. He stepped closer. And I know Sonny's enemies already think he's weak. Those words haunted Carly long after Joe left, because part of her feared he was right. 1 week later, everything changed forever. Sonny's main warehouse was ambushed. Gunmen everywhere. Bullets tore through the docks. Jason fought beside Sonny while guards dropped one after another. Then, a sniper targeted Sonny directly. Jason saw it too late, but before the shot fired, Joe appeared from nowhere and tackled Sonny down. Crack. The bullet ripped through Joe's shoulder instead. Sonny stared in horror. Joe! But Joe ignored the pain completely. He grabbed Sonny's gun and moved like pure fury. One shooter dropped, then another, precise, efficient, merciless. Jason watched in stunned disbelief. Joe fought like someone born for this world. Minutes later, the attack ended. Bodies covered the dock. Police sirens echoed in the distance. Sonny knelt beside Joe, pressing against the gunshot wound. Why would you do that? Joe looked pale but calm. Because if you died today, he struggled to breathe. This family would fall apart. Sonny's eyes filled with emotion. For the first time, he truly saw his son. At General Hospital, the Corinthos family gathered anxiously. Carly, Dante, Christina, Michael, everyone waiting. And when Michael arrived, Joe instantly stared at him. Cold, deadly. Michael shifted uncomfortably. You got something to say? Joe stepped forward slowly. You betrayed him. Michael frowned. You don't know the whole story. I know people died because of you. Sonny intervened immediately. Enough. But Joe didn't stop. Your father protects you because he loves you. Michael glared back. And who the hell are you? Joe answered without hesitation. The one who'll do what Sonny can't. The room fell silent. Even Sonny looked shaken, because deep down, he knew Joe meant it. Days later, Brick finally identified the shepherd. But the revelation stunned everyone. The shepherd wasn't an outsider. It was someone from Sonny's past. A former enforcer named Vincent Moreau. A man Sonny once left for dead years ago. And Vincent had one final plan. Destroy Sonny publicly. During the Port Charles Charity Gala. The night of the gala arrived with elegance and danger. Politicians, doctors, mobsters, everyone gathered beneath glittering chandeliers. But Joe sensed something wrong immediately. Too many exits blocked, too many unfamiliar faces. He quietly approached Jason. We're walking into a trap. Jason nodded grimly. I know. Across the ballroom, Sonny greeted guests unaware of the sniper positioning above the skylight. Joe spotted the laser first. Down! Gunfire exploded. Glass shattered everywhere. Screams filled the ballroom. Chaos erupted instantly. Jason returned fire while Sonny shielded Carly. But Joe moved straight toward the sniper's position. Alone. Upstairs, Vincent Moreau waited with a smile. You really are Sonny's son. Joe entered silently. You talk too much. Vincent laughed. You know what Sonny's greatest weakness is? Joe aimed his weapon steadily. Family. Vincent smirked. That's why he'll lose. But Joe's expression darkened. No. He cocked the gun. That's why I'll win. Gunshots thundered through the upper floor. Moments later, Joe emerged alone. Vincent Moreau was dead. The threat was over. But something inside Joe had changed forever. Later that night, Sonny found him standing outside the penthouse staring over Port Charles. You crossed a line tonight, Sonny said quietly. Joe didn't deny it. He would have kept coming. Sonny sighed heavily. That's how this life traps you. Joe looked at him. You think I don't know that? For a long moment, neither man spoke. Then Sonny finally asked the question haunting him. Why stay? Joe's answer came softly. Because despite everything... He looked toward the city lights. You're still my father. Months passed, and slowly Port Charles began whispering a new name. Joe Corinthos. Some feared him more than Sonny. Others respected him instantly. Even rival families became cautious. Because Joe wasn't emotional like Sonny. He was colder, smarter, strategic. And soon, Sonny began stepping back. Meetings Joe handled personally. Shipments Joe secured. Negotiations Joe controlled. Jason noticed it first. You're preparing him. Sonny looked exhausted. I'm getting older. Jason frowned. That kid's dangerous. Sonny nodded slowly. I know. One evening inside the coffee warehouse, Sonny watched Joe direct operations flawlessly. Men obeyed instantly, no hesitation, no fear. And suddenly Sonny realized something terrifying. Joe wasn't just capable of leading the Corinthos Empire, he was built for it. Later, Michael confronted Sonny privately. You're replacing me with him. Sonny sighed. This isn't about replacement. Michael shook his head bitterly. He's turning this family into soldiers. But Sonny's expression hardened. No, he's keeping this family alive. Meanwhile, Joe secretly uncovered something shocking. A federal RICO case was building against Sonny. Evidence, wiretaps, financial records, and someone close to the family was cooperating with the FBI. Joe immediately understood the danger. If Sonny got arrested, the empire would collapse overnight. So Joe made a decision, a ruthless decision. Without Sonny's knowledge, Joe met secretly with the federal informant. In a deserted parking garage, the informant trembled. You can't stop this case. Joe stepped from the shadows calmly. I'm not here to stop it. The informant looked confused. Then Joe spoke the chilling words. I'm here to end it. The screen faded to black, and in true General Hospital fashion, the biggest war in Corinthos history was only beginning. Thank you for watching. Write what you think about it. Subscribe to the channel.